guys, welcome back to Curls on Demand. If this is your first time, then welcome to the family. I hope you find something on my channel that is helpful, and I hope you consider to subscribe. If this is not your first time, then welcome back. Today I'm gonna be doing the first part to a mini series I'm calling Tools Every Natural Should Try, and part one of this series we're gonna cover deep conditioning tools. So I'm gonna show you all the deep conditioning tools that I have personally tried, and I'm gonna give you the pros and cons of each, and I'm gonna rank them at the end of the video to tell you which one that I love the most and which ones that I love the least. If this is what you came to see, then stay tuned. I will link all the tools that I've mentioned in this video in the description. Don't worry, I got you. Let's talk about the first tool. The first tool we're gonna look at is an electric cap that has an on and off button. Now, this cap comes with the heat cap and an extra shower cap to place directly over your head. All you have to do is place the shower cap on your head, plug the heat cap in, and place it over the shower cap. Okay, here are the pros to this heat cap. It's electric, so you will always get the same amount of heat throughout your entire time of deep conditioning. It will never get cold. It will just stay at the temperature or the setting that you put it at, and so that's great. The second thing is it doesn't require a lot of effort because you don't have to hold a hair dryer to get that heat all around your hair, so it doesn't require a lot of effort. The third thing is it's not noisy like a hair dryer is. Like, it's super quiet. It will get the heat through your strands for as long as you want to deep condition, whether that's half an hour, an hour, I don't care. I usually try to go for half an hour, but sometimes it's longer than that. But regardless of the time, you will always get the same amount of heat. Here are the cons that I could tell you about this. The only thing I can really think of is the fact that it has to be plugged in. So you're gonna be stationary while using this heat cap. You can't walk around and do chores. You can't walk around, do laundry and all of that. You're gonna have to be stationary. But you can do other things, like because it's quiet, you can listen to music, you can binge watch a show, you can fall asleep maybe, you can do homework, you can type articles, whatever it is that you need to do, you can do with this, but you're gonna be stationary. You can't be walking and moving around with it. That's the only con that I can think of. Also, maybe another con that I can think of is the heat cap is kind of big, although it has like it has a little adjuster to make it tighter on your head. I kind of have a small head. I know it doesn't look like it. I know my head kind of looks big, but I kind of have a small head, so it's a little bit big. Other than that, like, it's not a big deal. I'm guessing it'll be big head friendly for people with bigger heads, but if you have a small head like me, you can adjust it. I'm just not necessarily a big fan of how well it adjusts. The next tool we're going to talk about is the microwaveable heat cap. The cap I'm actually showing you here is actually filled with flaxseed, and I do have another cap that's filled with gel packs, and there is a very big difference, a difference between the two on how long they hold the heat. And so I did a mini experiment to see how long the flaxseed would hold its heat or becomes cool to the touch versus the gel packs. And when I put the flaxseed cap in there for the recommended time, which I think it was about like 3 minutes, when I put it in there, it holds its heat for about 16 minutes. When I put it in there for 5 minutes, which is not a good idea, I would not tell you to do that, because I did that in my apartment. Smelled like burnt popcorn. I'm very sure I probably destroyed the cap. But when I put it in there for 5 minutes, it held its heat for about, let's see, I have it on my phone. For about 18 to 25 minutes, it will hold its heat when you put it in there for 5 minutes, but I don't think that's a good idea. So let's go with 3 minutes, and that's about 15 to 16 minutes of heat. I don't like that personally. I'm not a fan. I like to deep condition for about half an hour, and it can go for more, but anything less than half an hour, I'm not really here for. But the gel caps, however, they recommend that you put it in there for like a minute and a half. And when I put it in there for a minute and a half, it will give you about 26 to 34 minutes of heat before it becomes cool to the touch. So do with that as you may, but I would choose the gel caps over the flaxseed caps. But the problem with that is the gel caps are not as comfortable as the flaxseed caps are. I can show you. Like, the gel caps look like this, and they're just not very comfortable, whereas the flaxseed caps are super comfy. This is super soft, whereas this is just hard and structured. So do that as you may. Regardless, we're going to look at the pros and cons of them. Okay, so here are the pros of both of those heat caps. The first pro is that it's very convenient. It's a lot convenient. It's a lot more convenient than any of the tools that I'm about to talk about, or any of the tools that I will talk about in this video. You can walk around with it. You can move around with it. So you can wash dishes. You can do chores. You can watch TV. You can do anything that you want with it. You can even decide to leave your house with it on your head, and that's up to you, sis. But I wouldn't do it. But if that's something that you want to do, you have an emergency, you want to be deep conditioning while you're shopping or going for groceries or whatever that is, go ahead, do you. But I would not recommend it. But that's okay. I said, do you. Alright, so that's the first pro. The second pro is that it's comfortable to wear. Now, as I said earlier, the flaxseed one is more comfortable to wear than the gel pack one, but it's gonna be in your hair for what, half an hour. It's okay. It'll be fine. The third pro is that it doesn't require as much effort as a hair dryer would if you use the hair dryer to apply heat for deep conditioning. So it doesn't require as much effort, and it seems like a solid to me. The con, however, is that you do not get consistent heat throughout the entire time of using it. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, if the temperature is at, I don't know, 80 degrees, then all throughout the time, the half an hour that you have it on your head, that temperature is slowly decreasing. So that's the only thing. You will not get consistent heat. And that's something that you have to weigh the pros and cons about. Like, do I care about consistency of heat or not? And if that's something you care about and you want your heat to be consistent throughout the entire time of deep conditioning, then this is probably not the tool for you. But there are other tools that will allow you to have some convenience and also have consistent heat throughout the process. So let's look at the third tool. The third tool on the list is the Bonnet hood hair dryer attachment. And this is what it looks like. And this is where you will attach your hair dryer, your hand dryer. You'd attach the nozzle of it to this. Now, here are the pros of this tool. Get consistent heat throughout the process of your deep conditioning. So that heat is not going to change like if you were wearing one of the microwavable heat caps. So that's a pro. Consistent heat throughout. The second pro is that it can duo as a heat dryer. So you can set some of your curly hairstyles like with roller sets or with like perm rods, you can set those under this hood bonnet, and so it will duo as both a heat cap for deep conditioning and a dryer for your hairstyles, for setting some of your hairstyles. So those are the pros. Let's look at the cons. Wah, wah, wah. The biggest and probably the only con of this tool is the fact that it requires a lot of work. It's not convenient at all, and it's probably the most inconvenient tool in the list of tools that I'm gonna show you today in this video. Like, let's just think about it. You are going to be holding this hair dryer in your hand for 30 minutes. I mean, you can rest the hair dryer down on your table and let it go, but I don't know, and that's probably a good way to combat it being inconvenient, but I don't know, I don't like that idea either. I'd prefer, and probably like thinking about safety and like how hot like the top of the hair dryer can get, I prefer to hold it, which means I have to sit there and hold it the whole time. I can't do anything during that time because my hand is occupied, even though I use my left hand to hold it and my right hand, because I'm a righty, and use my right hand to type or do something else. I just think it's inconvenient. It's really just the most inconvenient tool on this list, really and truly. Like, and it's noisy. Like, let's just think about it. And it's noisy. I can't listen to music really well, nor can I binge watch a show because I'm not gonna hear anything. As I said, inconvenient, and probably the most inconvenient tool on this list. I think that's the biggest con of this. Apart from that, like, it does the job. It does what it's supposed to do. So another thing to weigh, the pros and cons. What really matters to you? What do you really care about the most when deep conditioning? And that's really a choice that you have to make. Let's get on to the fourth tool. So the fourth tool on this list is the automatic soft bonnet hair dryer. It's like the hood bonnet attachment, but it doesn't need a hand dryer. All you have to do is place a shower cap over your head, attach the bonnet, and plug it in. So the pros of this tool are, one, it's electric, so you're gonna get the same consistency of heat throughout the whole time of deep conditioning compared to your microwavable cap. The second pro is that it doesn't require as much effort as the tool we just talked about with the hand dryer, to attach to. Like, it doesn't require any of that effort because it has the little machine that actually like pumps hot air to the cap. So that's perfect. You don't have to hold it, which means you can multitask. You can't necessarily move around, but you can multitask. You can watch TV, you can listen to music or do something on your computer or whatever that looks like. You can't do that. You can definitely do that. The third pro is that just like the handheld dryer attachment, it does duo as a heat dryer that can set some of your hairstyles, like your perm rods, your roller sets, your flexi rod hairstyles. It can duo as that and provide heat in that way compared to like the microwavable cap or the other electric cap that we talked about, right? So there's that. And then let's look at the cons. I think the only con that I can really think about is that, one, it is noisy, like the hand dryer attachment. It is noisy, and because it's plugged in, you don't have the ability to move around and like do chores or do some things around the house that you may want to do while deep conditioning. So the multitasking component of like moving around you can't do because you're gonna be stationary wherever it's plugged into. So let's look at the fifth tool, which is the last tool that we're going to talk about in this video. Now, the last tool we're going to talk about is the tabletop hair dryer. Now, I know they have hair dryers that you don't have to put on the table. They have like the stands, like how you see them in like the salons. But the one that I have is a tabletop one. And so that's the one we're going to talk about. Now, the pros for this are basically the same as the tool that I just talked about, my number 4 tool, which was the automatic soft bonnet hair dryer. So number 1, it's electric, so it provides you with consistent heat throughout the whole deep conditioning process. So it requires less effort than the hand dryer attachment option, which was my number 3 tool. And it also doubles as a heat dryer to set your hairstyles, like, as I said, your roller sets, your flexi rod. Now let's talk through those cons. Now, the first con, it is bulky. Like, we're not gonna front, it's a very big tool and it's the biggest tool on this list. So storage and finding a safe place to put it, you have to think about that because it takes up a lot more space than any of the tools that I've mentioned. 2, it is noisy, so you can't necessarily watch TV or listen to music during that time, but you can do other things. Also, because it's plugged in, you don't have the convenience of walking around. You have to stay stationary wherever you are. So most of the things that you can do will be I don't know, using your computer to get work done or to get something done, but that's the limit to its convenience. The third con about this, which is not a con of the 4th tool that I mentioned, is that because it's a tabletop hair dryer, you have to almost find a tabletop or a surface that you can sit under, because if it's too low, then you're not going to be able to put your head under it. If it's too high, you're not going to be able to put your head under it. The thing is, it's convenient for me because I have an adjustable chair that goes up and down. So because I have that convenience in a chair, like if I put it on a tabletop and it's too high, I can adjust my chair to go higher. And if it's on a tabletop and it's a little bit low, I can adjust my chair to go lower. And so that's one of the cons that you have to think about when you think about the fact that it has to go on a tabletop or on another surface. And that's the last of the tools. So let's talk about my rankings. So I'm going to rank them from 1 to 5 based on convenience and usability. And so let's look at how I rank these folks. So the last tool on my list, and a tool that I probably almost never, ever grab for deep conditioning, is gonna be the hood dryer attachment. Like, it's just too much work. Like, every time I think about wanting to use that to do any deep conditioning session, I just don't want to do the deep conditioning session. So, because it just requires way too much work. And so that would be the last tool that I look for. I'm gonna rank the tabletop hood dryer and the automatic hood bonnet together. So they're gonna be my number 3 ranking. I'm gonna rank those together just because the cons and the pros are basically the same, and they're more convenient and easier to use than the soft bonnet blow dryer attachment. So that'll be my number 3, sorry. And then my number 2 will be, and then my number 2, which was a hard decision because I really like both of these. I like number one, and I like my number one, and I like my number two. And the reason why I'm putting it at number two is just because it's not as convenient. So I'm gonna choose the heat cap, the electric heat cap, as my number two. And the only reason is because it has to be plugged in, and so I don't have the convenience of walking around and doing chores and getting things done during that time. Although I can do everything else. I can read a book, I can surf the internet, I can binge watch a show, I can listen to music, I can probably even fall asleep. But it's just the fact that I'm stationary. That's the issue. Like, it just doesn't have as much convenience as the microwavable caps, which are my number ones. And the only reason why it's my number one is because I can move around in it. I don't necessarily like the fact that I don't get the same amount of heat throughout the entire process, but it does the job. It does what it needs to do. So, okay, if you prioritize having consistent heat throughout your deep conditioning process over the convenience and ability to multitask and move around freely, then you probably should get the electric heat cap because it does the job. It's really good. If you prioritize being able to multitask and move around freely over consistent heat throughout the deep conditioning process, then the heat cap, the microwavable heat cap, is probably your best option. And so it's up to you which ones you want to try. You can try the ones in my third and fourth ranking, but I'd recommend number one and number two based on what your preference is and what you're giving more priority. But as I said, everything is linked down in the description. I hope this was helpful for you, and I hope you come back and watch the rest of my videos, and I hope you consider to subscribe. But that's all I have for you today, guys. I'll see you in the next video.